I'm Brian Van, SportbikeTracker.com, and today we're going to install the DRIVEN TT rear sets on our 2018 STG Suzuki GSX-R1000R project bike. Okay, rear sets. Why would you install them? We've had that question a few times now. The reasons to install aftermarket rear sets as compared to the stock is you pick up a degree of adjustment. You can see with the TT rear sets here, we have 6 foot peg positions to choose from. We have 3 toe piece positions to choose from. Folding toe pieces, more aggressive pegs, more grip. Better feel too because they're not spring loaded. They don't fold up, which is nice. And sometimes they'll even help protect the bike if you happen to have a crash, which, God willing, you will not have. So those would be some of the reasons to install aftermarket rear sets. Focusing now on the DRIVEN TT kit. Like I said, you have 6 positions to mount the foot pegs. 3 position toe piece. Of course, you can adjust the brake lever by adjusting the length of the push rod for the master cylinder. This kit also allows you to retain the functionality of the rear brake light switch, which is great if you are a street rider, okay? Really dig that for sure. Over on the shift side, we still have our 6 positions to choose from. Folding toe piece. This includes a full shifter, the bracket that mounts to the motorcycle, pivot, shift pedal. This R model has the auto blip downshift and of course the quick shift, so we reused the entire shift rod. It came with just a heim joint. You retain all of your adjustability here, of course, to get that shift pedal dialed right in. Nice positive feeling here, okay? Easy install over on the shift side. If you like what you see, you've decided to buy a set and you want some help installing them, watch everything that follows this. We'll show you step by step what we did to install these on our 2018 GSX-R1000R. Okay, stock rear set removal. While you still have the bracket, main bracket bolted up to the bike, you want to get the brake master fasteners loose because they are in there pretty tight. And typically the factory is going to put a little thread lock around that, okay? So break those loose first. And then from there, you can see the remnants of that right there, okay? From there, we'll go ahead and remove the main body from the frame. Keep these, do not throw these out, do not get rid of the fasteners. It's all good stuff you'll use at some other point down the road. Expect these to be tight and definitely expect these to have Loctite. The way these feel, honestly, I may switch tools and move to a ratchet. It's going to give me a little more torque. Okay, a little tool swap here. No sense in working harder than you have to. Okay, you can clearly see plenty of thread lock around there from the factory. Okay, now we have two more points that need to be detached. Our brake light switch. Roll this around here. There we go. Like so, kind of pulled back on that right here. That lever, and that kind of released it, so do that. Next up, we have the brake master. Go ahead and spread the cotter pin legs. I want to get them closed up so you can pull it out. Use a couple of different tools here. A flat bladed screwdriver. We'll transition to a pair of side cutters. Just a little squeeze here. Kind of push. If you're gentle enough, you'll easily be able to reuse that. I typically reuse that cotter pin on every set of rear sets we install on the project bikes. If you guys have watched any of our builds before, you'll know that we don't do just one brand. We'll install almost every one we offer. Pull that pin. There is your factory rear set on the brake side. Okay, the Driven TT rear sets on the brake side are going to allow for the reuse of the OE brake light. We're going to do that. Folding tip on the brake pedal, 6-position adjustable for the foot pegs. Okay, just pick the hole. What I like here too is here's stock back, but up 19. You can come back here. You're going to be back 16 and up somewhere between 19 and 34. You can kind of gauge that. So it gives you an idea of realistically where you're putting it before you get it on the motorcycle, and I think there's some benefit to that for sure. As you can see, the foot peg needs to be installed. It comes uninstalled. I am not going to use thread locker during our install today. The reason behind that is this is a project bike that's going to receive many different sets of rear sets, and having a thread locker on there does not make my life easier. I want to go up just a little bit. I want a little more ground clearance, but beyond that, I think I was pretty good with the foot position. Get that spun on there. Okay, now to lock these down, what I like to do here is just kind of get it up there and get an idea of where it needs to be similar to how it was set up with stock. And the stock ones were rotated forward just a little bit. Okay, kind of like that right there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a 23 mil wrench, 6 internal hex. Just going to use a T-handle for that. We're going to snug this up before I put it on the motorcycle. Okay, just try and preserve that angle. Let's take a quick look. It's just rolled forward just a little bit like the stock ones were. Okay, next up, we can go ahead and get our brake master set up. Just want to kind of mock everything up. That looks good. Distance there looks good as well. Here's our pin, washer, and the cotter pin that we pull out of the OE. I like to put just a little bit of grease through the rear set, brake pedal, get just a little bit of lube on the edges too, doesn't hurt. A little bit of friction there, so anything you can do to reduce that, it's not a bad thing. We've got ball bearings on the pedal, of course. Okay, let's go ahead and attach the brake master push rod to the brake pedal. Got it all lubricated. I'm going to push through the backside like so. Okay, see that? Clearance is good. Let's go ahead and get that washer on there like so. That is the cotter pin that we pulled out. Slide that through, and you can turn that around. Grab that little flat blade screwdriver I've got, and we'll use this to spread the legs back apart. If you happen to damage this during the removal, this is something that's very easily sourced. Any hardware store, most home improvement stores are going to have this kind of stuff. So if you did damage it, don't freak out. Just go grab another one. Okay, like so. Make sure everything's moving freely. Now we're ready to grab that stock brake light switch. I like that a lot of the new Rearset kits are allowing for reuse of the brake light switch. Okay, slide it through the bracket, Clips right in. I'm going to turn it this way to finish. This fastener right down here. Is the one that we will fasten the spring to the pedal. Okay. Just a little bit of tension. Thread locker here is definitely a good thing. That'll ride on that. You can roll this back around. Okay. Main body fasteners. It's going to mount the bracket to the frame of the motorcycle. Those are next. Great idea to use thread locker here. If you prefer to use a torque wrench, defer to the instructions for torque settings. Run them both down, finger tight. No real final torque yet. Get them both seated. Go ahead and torque these now. Nice and even. Fasteners for that rear master. Those are next. Another great place to use thread locker. Get that one started. We'll seat them both before we apply any final torque. Okay, it's important to note, before I ride the bike, I'm going to get on here with the boots that I'm going to ride with and make the necessary adjustment to the brake pedal and make sure I like the position I've got the foot pegs in, okay? Do that with the footwear you ride in to get it dialed in. Probably have to do it on the shift side as well. It's also important to note that after you've ridden with this a little bit, even though you're sure you have everything torqued, come back and check it, say after the first couple of sessions or the first few hundred miles. Now let's go over and do the shift side. Okay, now we're going to remove the shift side rear set. We'll begin with the factory footrest. Just like on that brake side, fair amount of Loctite, so we're going to use a ratchet, make our lives a little easier. You could get this done with a T-handle, just going to be more difficult, and there's no reason for that. Okay, save all this, of course. See all that factory thread locker. Okay, now the shifter itself. This is the R model, so it has the quick shifter. Most rear set kits, you're going to be reusing your entire shift rod, so we're just going to break the jam nut loose there. And we'll then remove the main pivot bolt. Definitely some Loctite in this one. Okay, from here you can go ahead and spin this off. We'll then remove the bracket. Every rear set kit is going to be a little bit different. We're going to show you how to remove the bracket from the frame that holds the shifter. It's another high stress point, so my expectations are here that we're going to have some thread locker. Maybe not. Okay, those came right out. It's kind of a generic removal here for us. The kit that we're working on may or may not have you taking this step. Okay, now we're ready to install the shift side of the Driven TT rear sets. I want to put the foot peg in the same position that we did on the other side. So we're just going to go one hole up. Once I get to the track, if I feel the need to move this stuff, just take the tools with us, give me the opportunity to tweak it. I also want to try and preserve that angle that I have on the other side. Right about there. 23 mil wrench on the flat. And then the back of the foot peg. That's a 6 internal hex. Good torque on that. You should use thread locker there once you've found your final resting place. Okay. Fasten this to the frame of the bike. You might experience, just a little extra resistance with these fasteners because there was a fair amount of factory thread locker there. Run them both down by hand until they're seated before you apply any real torque. Once you've done that, torque them even. If you want to use a torque wrench, now'll be the time to grab that. Okay. Double check the heel guard. Now we're ready to install the shifter. Now we're going to install the shifter. Driven's kit includes the bracket that mounts to the frame. Okay, so I'm going to start by disassembling this right here. I want to separate the shift pedal and that mounting bracket. It's going to help us install it, make it just a little bit easier. We're going to use the same fasteners the OE rear sets use down here at the frame. So we'll go ahead and install that bracket. Get them both down, seated, hand tight, and then we'll torque. Like so. And now, let's go ahead and, you want to thread in a reasonable amount, okay, of the hind joint. Enough so that you're able to get an adjustment out of it while maintaining all the proper angles and having enough threads inside that shift rod. Okay. Start off right about here. See what that's going to look like for us. Okay, looking at the shift rod now, you want to try and get this as close to 90 degrees as you can. This is the setup on this bike's a little bit different. It makes it a little more difficult to get a proper 90 here, especially with this shifter. That's very close. That is dead on. I like the spacing right now. So we're gonna run with this. Once again, I'll adjust further once I have on the shoes and or boots that I would ride with. In my case, it's gonna definitely be boots at the racetrack. And I'll really dial this in. Now we need to go ahead and tighten the shift rod itself up. I'm gonna run that nut down. Another thing that's very important is you wanna try and keep the heim joints running on the same plane with one another, okay? So to do that, with this setup, I'm going to need two 10mm wrenches, one to hold the shift rod, and then the other to tighten the jam nut. Okay, seat of the pants, that looks pretty good. Spacing, everything. We've got 3 positions to choose from here with adjustment. If I want to do that, I'll do that at the track once I've got my boots on. Everything else looks good. The angle here, that is very nice, okay? That looks like pretty solid 90 here. It's just a little more open than I'd like, but the mechanical advantage there is going to be really good. I may try to rotate the shift knuckle this way. Just one click. That should help just a little bit, but realistically the mechanical advantage from what I see here is going to be good. Now we need to tighten the shift rod, okay? I like to try and get the heim joints running on the same plane if at all possible. So what I'll do here is just seat that jam nut. Got 2 wrenches, one to hold the shift rod and the other to tighten the jam nut. I'm trying to rotate the upper heim so that it's fairly similar, okay? In terms of the plane it's going to ride on to the one I'm tightening the jam nut for. Okay, now do that when you're done. Make sure you can wiggle it back and forth freely. If it's bound up, you're reducing, the benefit of the mechanical advantage that you would have. Okay, so you don't want any friction there. You want that nice and smooth, as close to 90 here as possible. Okay, and same thing here. Multiple toe positions to choose from, multiple foot peg positions. I won't know which one's right for me until I have the opportunity to really ride the motorcycle with the rear sets on. Double check everything before you ride the bike the first time, whether you're on the street or the track. Make sure it's all tight, it all looks good, everything is moving freely. The brake, okay, if you're using the tail light, make sure the brake light switch is actuating and turning the tail light on, turn your key on and do that. Once you've verified everything's good, you've got your riding footwear on, make sure you're in a good position, take it out and do a session, or take it out and do a few miles on the street. Make sure you're happy, bring it back, double check everything. I'm Brian Van, SportbikeTrackGear.com. This is the Driven TT rear set install on our 2018 Suzuki GSX-R1000R STG project bike.